Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports as Ordered. And these sounds are brought to you by the world renowned, the world famous, born in Texas, raised in VA, representing New Jerusalem. He wants Kentucky, Tennessee, and all you other redneck states out there to know that the official dance of the state of New Jersey is square dancing. So stop swagger jack. He is Mr. Logic.
It's a great place to be from.
And by the way, don't bring feelings to a fat fight.
Don't do it.
Then you got an unorthodox statistician who believes in Joe Hendry. E equals 2.5 squared. Going left so much you thought I was Southpaw. 2.5, y'all. Drink a liquid death. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. You know what I'm saying? What's up? We got the number one fan, first fan, Chris in the building. What's happening? You know what I'm saying? He been dropping some gems on us. Something is cooking, just to let you know. But tonight we're going to talk about some NBA, lots of NBA. We're going to talk about some Nico. We're going to talk about some NFL draft. So, Mr. Logical, let's start this off. We just looked at the West and all the possibilities of the teams and the spots that they could fall in. For example, the Lakers anywhere from 3 to 5. You know, the Nuggets from anywhere from 3 to 8, not 7, 8. The Clippers anywhere from 4 to 8, so on and so forth. You know, we got Denver and Memphis right now. You know, Ja Morant is probably getting that rocket launcher ready. But before we get to all of that,
punch, right? The one that hit you with the fist.
Give me a second here. Give me a second here, Mr. Logical. So let me talk to the cuck-ass fans of the Dallas Mavericks real quick. All y'all did was get your team sent to Vegas. What the hell was that display the other night? So look, you played the tribute video, cool. Made Luka cry, cool. By the time he dropped 31 in the first half, get off his dick. You know what I'm saying? It's time to boo now. Like, Luka doesn't play for your team anymore. I know that you love him, but he's the enemy now. You know what I'm saying? Now, with that being said, Nico Harrison, fire Nico Harrison, cool. But how about the owner that gave him the ability to make that decision or that approved the decision?
Listen, everybody know Americans are infatuated with billionaires. Mm-hmm. Billionaires can do no wrong, so you blame the dude that's making millions of dollars.
Fuck that, because what I know did not happen. There's a lot of things that
going to say your team. Listen,
there's a lot of things that
a lot of space across the street from Mandalay Bay. Just throwing it out there. It's a lot of space for a basketball arena.
I don't care what they came to do, Residente.
Mandalay Bay.
You can do that for the first half or, you know, the first quarter or something like that. When the man, you know, is putting 45 on you, you got to switch it up
during the video tribute, and then after the tip-off is booing him every time you get the ball.
No, you ain't got to boo him every time you get the ball because he didn't put this in motion.
I don't think you really need to boo him at all.
No, honestly, you don't even need to boo him. But no, what they were doing
they know it's it. I think they know it's over. I think
what they were doing was he would hit a shot, and the jumbotron would do the thing, make some noise. That's a little much
because they know it's over. Let's unpack this trade now. We got a couple of months on it. You have Kyrie who has to rehab. NFL players tend to go. I think Adrian Peterson had his surgery on New Year's Day, and he was ready for opening day in the NFL. But he's also a freak genetic athlete. His mother was a college track star. His father was a linebacker. That's a different breed of human being. So he was ready to go in 9 months. RG3, I think he got his in January in the playoffs. He tried to come back early, wasn't the same. So that's 9 months. So if Kyrie goes cautiously and goes 10 months, that's still January.
And then they talking about potentially getting Kevin Durant.
And then it's like, so you got to move a lot of pieces to get KD. So you're going to move enough pieces to get KD. And you got KD and AD. Cool. But you're going to be missing. PJ Washington's definitely going to be gone. one of your bigs is going to be in that deal. They can't make another bad deal where they don't get to
question for
fleece the
you.
other team.
Here's a question for you. Did Nico even ask for Austin Reeves?
He had to.
Did he?
You had to. You had to mention it.
That's what I'm talking about. Residente, he would hit a shot and the joint would be like, make noise, and like
because he like he said when the post game interview tonight, I get to sleep in my bed. Like Dallas is still home. It is not the fans' fault that he doesn't play there anymore.
No,
I think the people in the building. I think it's really. I think it's like ingrained in the fans and the people who work there who aren't in millionaire leadership status that they thought this was a bad move.
Maybe they needed closure.
And I think they're going to do whatever they can do. Excuse me, to stick it to the man, because it's like no matter how you
they can wave Baba to Vegas while they at it.
If I was the NBA, I get another team in Vegas before they could do it. Just to make them sell the team and be
wave high to Seattle. Let me check the Washington gambling rules.
Yeah. It'd be sick to have a casino and a basketball arena in the same. Like that would be dope. So I'm a Vegas guy. I like what Vegas does when they put stuff together. But if the rumors are true, the force your way out of Dallas this way, I guess because in Vegas you really don't need a marquee player because it's Vegas.
Oh, you'll get them.
The A's are going there. The A's are going. Yeah, you'll get one, but it's like just because it's Vegas. Like I said, we talked about it before with the Raiders. It's like you could just build in your weekend trip to go to a Raiders game. It's crazy expensive, but you're like, you know what? It's Vegas. It's my birthday. Right. Let's go to Vegas for my birthday and see a Raiders versus Packers game or whatever the game is going to be that weekend. You decide to go out there.
And last thing before I move on from this Dallas thing, Anthony Davis. This is why the Lakers traded you. 13 points, 5 of 13 from the floor. Like, why can't you just show up when you need to? Why?
That's strange when as much as NBA players love to shoot the basketball, and you're a player with the ultimate green light, and not like they had a big that was guarding you. I think most times you might have got a switch with LeBron on you. Like, I don't think there's another guy on the Lakers roster that's over 6'9" that was guarding them.
Maybe Jackson Hayes. He might be 6'10".
Yeah, but he's 6'10", 210. you might as well be 6. You might as well be 6'5" if you're gonna be 6'10", 210.
We know, Chris. You know what I'm saying? Give me the details. Stop talking in crypt like this, man. It's crypto or whatever.
Yeah,
you know what I'm trying to say.
Breaking news. He just
I ain't trying to offend the Bloods out there. You know what I'm trying to say.
Can't give us all a moment, but he want to do it himself. Shout out Solutions Over Excuses.
All right, so Mr. Logical, here you go. You ready for this?
Let's get it.
So, as we were talking about the West playoffs, the Lakers have the tiebreaker, over the Nuggets, Clippers, Warriors, and Grizzlies. The Nuggets have the head-to-head over the Warriors. The Clippers have the head-to-head over the Warriors and the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies have the head-to-head against Minnesota. The Warriors have the head-to-head against Minnesota and Memphis. And then Minnesota has the head-to-head over Denver and the Clippers. So beyond a mess. Beyond a mess. And right now you got Memphis with a 9-point lead in the second quarter against Denver. So to close it out, like Memphis, they lost to Minnesota last night by 16. Anthony Edwards with 44 points. Ja put up a 30 spot. So I don't know what to do with this, man. So I was just going to ask you, if it were up to you, what first round matchups would you get out of this?
All right. So as the standings are currently cemented, metaphorically, because I think 1 through 8 right now in the West, I don't believe the Kings or Mavericks are going to get in. We're going to talk about the different potential scenarios where the Lakers could be anywhere from 3 to 5. The Timberwolves can be anywhere from 3 to 8.
I think it's 4 to 8. Yeah,
4 to 8. Let me pull up
Clippers from 4 to 8. Denver from 3 to 8. So Denver could still catch the Lakers.
So Yeah. So as it currently looks right now, let me see what matchup I would like. Western Conference. So we go West first. Uh I think Rockets, Timberwolves. No, yeah, I'm assuming Rockets Grizzlies will be cool. I think Timberwolves Thunder could be Thunder Nuggets from last year. Whereas believe a lot of people thought it was like a foregone conclusion that Denver was going to win that series.
Oh,
I
you talking
know it
about
was.
Denver, Minnesota? Yeah.
So I like the Thunder and Timberwolves. I like Anthony Edwards' personality, gamesmanship, seizing the moment, going up against Shea, who's having a Jordan-esque kind of season, and pretty much, I think the team collectively in Oklahoma City gets very little respect for a team that's currently 52 games over 500. Now
66
let's
wins.
66 wins. So they're 52 games over 500. The Rockets have 52 total wins and they're the second seed. So like that type of gap and spacing between 1 and 2, and people are still not people, a lot of pundits are talking, and their subjects lines are, who's the greatest threat to the Lakers in the West? It's like there's two teams ahead of the Lakers, and I get it. Like that's a greater story, but realistically, it's like, is anybody a threat to OKC? And I think OKC and Minnesota first round. That's I like that matchup because I think, like you said last night, uh, Anthony Edwards going for over 40. I think he's a backpack guy. I think he's like, listen, I'm going out here. I'm gonna try to put up 48 points. I just need you to knock down these corner threes. When they defend me at the rim and I got to kick it out to you, just knock down the three. We can beat this team. If I'm OKC, I would want Memphis just because I think they'll fall apart a little bit more because I think a lot of guys, when you fire the coach and you got a star player that people believe his antics are deliberate and trying to get traded, I think that dissension in the locker room can happen after one game. OKC comes out, beats Memphis 113-88 in the first game, and it's easy street. You beat Minnesota 113-88 in game one. Ant gonna be like, listen, man, we got these dudes. All we gotta do is stop this, and this. And people believe it. And they'll come back and win game two. Memphis is gonna be like, nah, I'm good. My calf tightened up. I'm not playing.
Well, like for me, first and foremost, I need the revenge of Ime. I want Rockets Warriors. You know what I'm saying? Especially after that game I saw last weekend, where the Rockets got up in that ass, pause, what I'm saying? What up? What up? What
What
up?
up, Fleazy?
You know what I'm saying? I think that, I'm here for Amen Thompson chasing around Steph Curry. I'm here to see Jalen Green with the bright lights taken against the empire, the evil empire that's at the end of the line. I'm here to see Ime just go up against the team that he lost to in the finals so he can unleash, what he's learned about the Warriors in that time. So that's first and foremost. I
So you
want
want them at 2-7? Or
I want
you
that at 2-7. I
2-7?
want
So
that
you
at
want the
2-7.
Warriors to drop? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I want that 3-6. I need that battle of LA. I've been waiting for it for 2 or 3 years now. You know what I'm saying? I can't get it. So I need it. You know what I'm saying? Kawhi going back. You always bring up the commercial where Kawhi's like, I'm the king of LA now. I
Yeah.
need that series, man, because I think it'll be a good series. I think it might go 7. And this
That
is
boy
the
the
problem
Burger
with the
King of
Clippers.
LA.
Well, this is the problem with the Clippers. They are very counterintuitive because the longer the playoffs go, the worse it is for them because somebody's going to get hurt or Harden's going to start playing, like Harden in the playoffs. Ben Simmons ain't
If
going to
Harden
show up.
has a 4 for 13 game,
Just waiting.
it's
Just wait.
it just is on deck. It's like one of those, like we talk about Boston. It's gonna be a game where somebody's gonna hit 19 threes against Boston in the playoffs. It just
Yeah.
happens every year. Four
Yeah.
for 13. Ben Simmons. I mean, do you just sag off of him the entire game and
I
just
don't know. I
rotate to
remember
him?
back in the day, they used to do the thing where they played behind him, where he would just kind of take off and you would chase them down versus being in front of them.
Yeah, I
You
remember
know,
they tried that. Utah tried that with James Harden playing offense. I'm like, he can still float it left-handed.
that's fine.
Like,
I live with that. Because he gonna miss them.
but
I was going to
he
say
get a foul call, then he would get the three anyway.
give me Denver and Memphis. Because we're at that point. Both of them fired their
Like, who's gonna give up first?
Yeah, which one is gonna tap out? You know what I mean? Right now, Memphis has a 57-44 lead with about 3 minutes left in the second quarter at Denver. So, but give me that. And then the last one, of course, would leave us with Minnesota and OKC for a lot of the reasons that you said.
Yeah, I like the matchup.
And I'm at the point, and real quick, I'm at the point where no excuses. I don't want to hear nothing about youth. I don't want to hear anything about playoff experience. You won 66 games, go win the title. But the reason that I would like to see them play Minnesota, because I think that if they play most other teams in the West, so not LA, the Lakers I'm talking about, not the Warriors and not Minnesota, but I think OKC would beat everybody else in a minimum or a maximum of 5 games. So I would like to see Minnesota because that gives us an opportunity to look at OKC and say, what happens if this goes 6? Like, where's your psyche? Where's your mental now if it's 3-2? That's just something I'm interested in, and I think Minnesota's the only team.
Minnesota, cold soda, baking soda. OKC in 5. Don't you? I
Okay,
just want to say something.
okay.
No, like I think OKC, and I guess I just want to keep it simple. I just feel they have, and I said the same thing about Boston, and I said when I want a team to win, this is the same thing I say about them. They have guys who are exceptional in their roles, and they have every role filled. There's not a basketball strategy tactic aspect that they don't have covered to make a championship run. You got your scorer, who's your best player, MVP talent. You have an anomaly at on offense or like just on the court at a 7'2" guy. Granted, he's not very big, but he does. You have to guard him with someone athletic enough to stay in front of him, even though he's not very big, but he can shoot over him. So the guy has to be big enough and athletic enough. There's not a lot of guys in the league that strictly play defense like that on Chet. Hardenstein rebounding. I think you have your Jaylee, your wing defenders. I think Dort, your on-ball defender. I
Mhm.
think you guys that come off the bench. I think the all the
Caruso.
things Caruso. I mean, it's a plethora of riches with OKC Thunder,
You know
and
what's
it's like
crazy?
all you have to do is play to. All you got to do is play to what you normally do. If you are an 8.3 rebound guy and you play 17 minutes, just do that. And I
You
think
know
those guys are so cemented in those roles. It's gonna be hard to stop.
You know what's crazy? And obviously, SGA is second in steals behind Dyson Daniels this year. Did you know that SGA has more blocks this season than Giannis and Jared Allen?
Giannis would make sense. Jared Allen doesn't. So you would think like Jared Allen they would rotate the shooter to him just so he can get blocks. Maybe they're just shooting it over his hand and he
Maybe,
just
but
alters a lot of
SGA,
shots.
so the Thunder like have 3 or 4 dudes that could be NBA all defense. SGA, Lou Dort, Chet, Hartenstein can play some defense. You got Caruso, J Dub, So I think that that's the thing that makes me feel different about OKC than most other teams with their lack of experience because defense travels. And that's why I think that Houston could be because I think a lot of these pundits are out here saying, "Oh, you want to get Houston, even if you got to play in the play-in, you want to get Houston. You don't want to play the Lakers. You don't want to play OKC. You don't want to play Houston because they're going to beat you up even if you win the series. But even beyond that, defense travels. So normally you talk about the role players, right? Like, at
Correct.
home, they're going to let it fly. On the road, they're going to be a little more hesitant. But they don't have to worry about that on defense. They're going to get into
Defense,
you.
you're gonna play the way you play. You're not gonna shy away from a defensive opportunity at home or on the road. You might not pull up from three, late in the third, and the score is 81-80. You might not blow a possession, but you'll step up and play defense anywhere. And what happens is you force a bad shot, errant shot. Şengün gets the rebound, outlet, Thompson gets an easy layup.
And I
And it's
keep
just
saying it, Dylan Brooks will hump you.
defense turns to offense so quickly, especially when you have guys that's like, listen, I'm not here to play defense, and if I get a putback, if I get an offensive rebound, I'm putting it back up.
Mhm.
That's my role. And I think guys knowing like everything that they do is for team success. Sometimes like we talk about the Lakers. I think a lot of times the Lakers players default back to whatever the offensive strategy is for that time on the court. Like if JJ Redick's like, hey, we're gonna work the pick and roll so we can get Luca and a big on him. Rui would get a rebound, well, maybe he might be able to take two dribbles and shoot a pull up, but they have to defer back to the offensive strategy for that time. So it was like you kick it back out to Austin Reeves, he gets it over to Luca, you reset the pick and roll. Whereas if Steven Adams gets an offensive rebound, just put it back up,
Right.
and
So I
we'll go with it. Yeah. So
I
I
got
think
another
that's the
question for
difference.
you. I got another question for you. This doesn't have anything to do with the playoffs. So the other night, the one and only Kyle Filipowski put up 30 and 18 with 5 assists. And on that same game, on the same team, my guy, Oscar Shibwe, put up 17 and 10. Does that speak to the skilled NBA or what?
It's the end of the year. It's some guys that are because these guys all have talent. We talk about Scalabrini's statement all the time. Like I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me. These guys are elite talents, and a few shots go in, they give you the green light. Maybe the pregame, like, listen, man, we're gonna let you play tonight. We're gonna let you play your game, and because I mean, everyone knows they're tanking for Cooper Flag anyway. So it's like, might as well give these guys an opportunity to get 12, 15,
Yeah,
16
and
shots
shout
up.
out to Drew Timmy, who's been killing it for the Nets since he got called up from the G League. Shout out to my guy Justin Edwards from UK, who was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick last year, but then, not so much. He went undrafted. So realistically speaking, what chance do the Lakers have to get to the finals?
Uh, Short, the lack of rim protection and the lack of a dedicated big to do dedicated big stuff is gonna hurt them. It's just because you can't keep playing games outside in. Like it's not a feasible thing. LeBron, all time great talent. Luca's gonna do his thing, but just a simple pick and roll lob dunk over the top. Jackson Hayes can't stop that. Rui can't always be there because he's defending the guy on the wing a lot of times. Austin Reeves is probably defending your point guard, maybe your two guard, depends on like the setup. So it's just your best defenders. Your best defensive concept is all five guys making the right read and being directed by LeBron or whoever is kind of anchoring the defense. That's going to get people. That's going to get missed. Like where you're directing guys and you're trying to get a guy in the corner, and then like Rui doesn't know the switch is coming. Just something like that. Every few possessions is going to happen where now you get a guy like, so they're playing 3-6. So you got the Clippers. He wants to get the switch where he's pressing hard now to the top. Rui doesn't hear it, or Rui doesn't move, and now Kawhi is pulling up at the free throw line and getting an easy look at the basket. And that's going to happen because these guys are offensive professionals. But the fact that there's no one there that can just clean up that mess, because it's going to happen. A guy's going to take a bad angle or get caught with a hezzy dribble. There's
Mhm.
no one at the rim that tells the opposing player, you can't come in here. Like I'm getting all the way to the rim, or the rotation. The ball comes to the corner, gets swung around. Now James Harden shooting the open three at the top of the key because, you know, you had to rotate the defense and everyone's scrambling. So I
Are
think that's going to be the ultimate thing that hurts somebody. Just because I don't think that if they had a guy like Hartenstein, I'm like, all right, maybe.
are the Knicks a threat to either Boston or Cleveland?
I don't believe so because the Cleveland and Boston both score from 25 feet. consistently with 8 guys. Like both teams have, I think Boston's probably running 8 guys with green lights, maybe about 9. So you have the whole starting 5. They all have the green light from 3. Then you bring in Pritchard,
Pritchard.
Hauser, so that's 7. Um, Porzingis comes off the bench, so that's 8. Yeah, so you have 8 guys off the top of my head right now that have green lights from 3. They're pretty consistent, probably 34 to 36%, somewhere in that range. But they're gonna shoot 40. So
Mhm.
so like that's I think that's the difference. I believe that's the same thing with
I
Cleveland.
still
Cleveland
don't
has
know
guys.
how Mikal Bridges gets his shot off. I still don't know how that works. You
I
know,
know he's working on it, but
but
that I
Jalen
think that's
Brunson,
going to be the part. That's going to be the part that hurts the Knicks because I know Karl Anthony Towns is there to score. Jalen Brunson, he when he's in scoring mode, he dribbles the ball a lot. It's a lot of like creating contact at the free throw line, keeping his dribble alive. And I think sometimes they can kind of stand around and watch. And a guy like Cat needs to get the ball consistently. But I think sometimes when Jalen's trying to get a shot off, he tends to dribble the
I
ball a lot.
think that it helps that they have Mitchell Robinson back, but I agree with you. But I think I'm gonna just go ahead and say it because I said it before. I'm taking Indiana over Cleveland in the second round. So I'm taking Indiana to get to the Eastern Conference Finals now. I just like the way that they're playing. Halliburton's back. He looks more closer to his form that he started before the All-Star game last year, before the injury. And remember, last year they took Boston to the wire in all 4 of those games in the Eastern Conference Finals,
Yeah.
and he missed half those games. So, I think Indiana is a sleeper to watch out for. I think Boston's going to win the East. I ain't going to say easily, but I just don't see who can beat them 4 times.
Yeah, and as you said, Cleveland, you got Cleveland losing in the second round. I am not 100% sold on that, but I do agree with you about as far as someone beating Boston 4 times. I just think that what Cleveland does is very similar to what Boston does. I just think Boston has a couple of more years of doing it, and their 2 top wing offensive players are just bigger. Tatum and Brown at 6'7", 6'8", 6'8", 6'9", somewhere in that range. Between Garland and Donovan Mitchell, both of them under 6'4", will be generous.
Yeah.
I think that's the piece because, like I said, you got to beat this team 4 times in 11 days with a couple of
Good
travel
luck.
days in the middle. It's
Good
gonna be
luck.
it's gonna be very tough considering that they're gonna be able to. I think they're gonna be able to slow Garland down with Drew Holiday on him aggressively, and then all the bigs that they could just run him. I just think that I
So
think Boston is just they're too well constructed
so
and to
so
just to
so on
fall
top
apart.
of so on top of the things that we were talking about in our pregame, if you will, and I'll let you get to that in a second. As far as the teams in the West who's kicking themselves because of games that they lost this year,
Yes,
is it possible that from a poetic standpoint, Harrison Barnes is going to be the reason that the Warriors are in the play-in?
I watched that his 2016's game 5 through 7. He shot 15%. And he was wide open. It felt
If he
as
just
if
shot 30%, they win the title.
if he shot 23%, if he would have made 2 open jumpers in game 7, they win. Because I think if he hits a couple of shots, they get to 100 points. Because he was wide open, and it felt like watching the clip and then, like thinking back to that game 7 because I watched while I was deployed. It felt like they was like, you know what, we're gonna go 5-on-4 and just kind of rotate to him if someone's close.
It felt like what the Spurs did to LeBron with Boris Diaw.
Yeah, just like we're gonna just put extra bodies on him
Have
and
that
just
free
like,
throw
hey,
jumper. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have it. If you can make it, you can make it. But other than that, this is our defensive strategy. You know what it is, and we don't think we don't think you can overcome it. But it is pretty poetic. I mean, you got Denver has other things that are gonna be the because they're the architects of their own demise by firing their
Yeah,
coach.
by getting
But
swept by Washington.
but they got swept by Washington. So now once again they're in that same conundrum when they could be anywhere from 4 to 8. Then you have Hornets beat the Lakers, but the Lakers are lucky because the furthest they can go down is 5. But some of these other calculations, everything else, they're probably firm at 3. Utah has wins over Golden State, Los Angeles, the Lakers, and Minnesota. The Nets beat Golden State, and the Raptors beat Golden State. So Golden State has, granted, I get it, you're gonna have some losses. They just have like 5 bad losses, and they had a bad one at a bad time, this week.
Mhm.
I love what Steph is doing, but he is proof that between him and Draymond is like, yeah, you can build with a couple of players, but the sustainability is going to be tough, and you have to make the right moves. I think sometimes you make these draft picks. We talk about the NFL draft coming up. You can make a couple of these moves and just get lucky. I saw a clip earlier. I don't want to go from a tangent, but the Bucks got Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp in the same round that year. 2 Hall of Famers. That's luck. Even if you scouted it and everything else, you still got to get lucky to get whoever's on the phone. You got to get to them before somebody else does. The
Yeah.
Warriors got Clay, Steph. Steph had those bad ankles, and then they ended up being able to sign him to like a lower contract because they felt he was injury prone. And then NASA made him some ankle braces, and all the Silicon Valley guys got with MIT guys to make sure his ankles. He hadn't rolled an ankle in 9 years, 9 to 10 years at
Mhm.
least, because that was a big deal before he signed his deal. So that was able to keep the money open for Kevin Durant. So like it was sustained for a very long time.
Right.
Now it's just you have Draymond and Steph, and you're trying to fill in all these other pieces, and you want these other pieces to operate like your old 2014, 2015, 2016 teams. And it's like that's tough. And
Mhm.
and you can see it in their record, being 47-33, and that's a grind for them. Where they were bringing out 60 wins back to back to back to back years.
Right. So it looks like we got Knicks, Pistons, and Pacers, Bucks. Because the Bucks knocked off the Pistons tonight, so they opened the game up, or they're leading 3 games with 1 game left. The Pacers got smoked by Orlando tonight, so it looks like the Knicks are going to be locked into the 3. So, I'm here for it. Knicks and Pistons, Jaden Ivey got cleared for basketball activities today. So, we'll see what happens, but I'm here for all of the playoffs.
This is Tibbs make it or break a year. And honestly, I don't Eastern Conference Finals maybe saves them.
Oh, yeah,
You
that's what
gotta
we were going to
beat
talk about. Yeah,
Boston.
yeah, let me go back to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you gotta beat Boston to make that happen.
yeah, I think Tibbs is on hot ice because they haven't beaten Boston, Cleveland, or OKC this year. So I think he's on hot ice already just because of that. I wonder, if Dame's injury may have given Doc Rivers a little more time because I think that he might have been looking down the barrel of the hot seat. But with that, you can't really
I
hold that
think
against him.
Milwaukee could potentially be on the verge of blowing up.
Yeah, because Giannis probably wants out.
Because if you keep Giannis, the money's gonna. If you keep Giannis for one more year, he's another year older, and he's either closer to not being tradable or not being payable. Because if he still feels he's good enough and he's physically capable of putting up, and if he comes out next year and he puts up 29, 10, and 8, and they want to do a contract extension or move some money around, man, that's $65 million it's going to cost you. So it's like
Yeah,
a 3 year, it'll be like a 2 year, 140 deal or something crazy like that with an opt out clause, which no one's going to opt out of 70
I
million.
think I think that Nick
But this is
Nurse
going to be their do a year.
I think that Nick Nurse might be semi-safe, but I think Daryl Morey might be out.
In Philly?
Yeah.
I think short of like, I know I'm saying blow it up, blow it up, blow it up. These guys on the team as they're presently constructed, healthy, you're viable. But if they come back healthy next year, they're competing with however Cleveland season ended. They're still a 60 plus win team 2024-25 season. Boston, they're a 61 team. A lot of people are projecting them to represent the Eastern NBA Finals again. So the Knicks 50 wins, third in the East again. Philly, you're looking at Detroit's coming on, Magic's coming
Indiana.
on, Indiana's coming on. Even if you're perfectly constructed next year in Philly, you're battling between 4 and 7 because I don't think you're touching the top three teams because your stars, your two of your stars, having sort of propensity to be healthy for the whole season. So you're gonna miss them for some stretches. There's gonna
Mhm.
be either injuries or rest. So you can't even you say you bank on them for 65 games
Mhm.
and they play 65 together. You're probably looking at what 40 and 25 is a good option in those 65 games. But you
Yeah.
still got 17 other games. And it's like, they can go either way. And that's the problem with Philly because they're gonna all get back together, they're gonna get all this money, and they're gonna start at 4. I think their
And
ceiling's
that's
gonna be
still being
4.
generous
Yeah,
considering everything that they're going through, and then you got,
yeah, they're playing for 4th place. Like Larry Bird was saying the 3-point, like who's here for 2nd place?
yeah,
These they're showing up for 4th place.
I wonder if Billy Donovan finally gets the can, as the Bulls are sitting in 10 right now, still getting the play in, but you're 6 games under 500 still. You already traded Levine, you got rid of DeRozan. So at some point you're starting over anyway, so you might as well get done because he probably should have been fired 2 years ago. But
Do
then
you
as I
get
look at the
do you get the former Memphis coach, or does he ride out the rest of his paychecks for his contract?
I think that would be a good pickup for them, or Mike Budenholzer might be available.
They would get rid of another coach.
That's the word on the street. Ever since the All-Star break, that's been on the street.
These billionaires, it's like, I mean, I guess $1 billion is 1 million 1,000 times. So it's like, okay, I'll pay this guy 18 million to walk away
Yeah,
because I'm gonna make 18 million when I bump the ticket prices and the beer prices to $19 next season anyway.
right. So I think,
Yeah,
yeah, I think he's on his way out. As they start over again. Obviously Denver and Memphis are already open. I wonder if going into next year, so not this year, but I got two coaches. I wonder if Quinn Snyder down in Atlanta could be on the hot seat, and that's only if they keep Trae Young. If they trade Trae Young, I think the clock might start a little bit over in some ways, but if they keep Trae Young, I think your clock starts. I think that Sacramento is going to be looking for a coach because they fired Mike Brown already,
yeah.
Doug Christie as the interim. So I was going to ask you, and I know all this shit is going on, Luca, all this. Is Jason Kidd out?
I mentioned that the other day. I think he might want out. Just hear me out
They traded
because
Babe Ruth, right?
yeah, because if you think about it, they made the ownership management made the deal, Luca. Like, yo, you good. We got 3 bigs. One of them's AD. He has a ring. Kyrie, the one of the most respected players in the league, dynamic talent, great role players. We're gonna gel this. This team's gonna gel. We're gonna excel. Well, now he doesn't have Kyrie going into next year. AD has been available a lot for the last few years in LA. I know people make it seem like he's like this fragile guy's always hurt. The last few years, it's something like 89, 90% of the games he's available to play. But he doesn't take over the game. He doesn't Giannis in these kind of moments. So I don't know if you can ride out maybe January, like I said before Kyrie comes back, best case scenario. I don't know if AD is going to be a guy that's like, you know what? I'm going to go 29, 10, and 8 to carry us over the hump.
Clay
And
another
then
year older.
play another year older. So it's going to be a situation where they're going to look at the team that they think should be better, expectation management.
Especially if they get KD.
And if you get KD, you got to give up something. And whatever you give him for KD, he can't replace by himself singularly. Yeah, he's going to give you 26, 27 points. He's going to give you the threat anywhere on the floor. He's going to give you consistency, but he can't give you lockdown defense on the guy rotating to the corner. Like he doesn't do that. And also score the ball and also pass the ball and also, is 6 extra fouls when you have to defend a guy like Steph, or he just doesn't give you all the things for all the pieces you're going to have to move to get him. Considering that a guy like Embiid might be available. I know that's not good for Dallas, but there's going to be movement. I think you talk about Trae Young potentially being available.
Ja.
Ja might be available because of his antics. And I think after seeing the Luka trade, GM's like, listen, long as we get back more than what Dallas got for Luka,
And
like
that's the
that could be the
thing,
new
right?
floor. Like, like that's the new
GM
floor. Like, long as we got a better deal than that, then I can move Trae Young for, a few guys from Detroit
Yeah,
and a couple of
GMs are
draft
gonna
picks.
be you miss every shot you don't take now,
Yeah,
like now
it's
that
gonna be a
Luka.
lot of GMs calling, like, I'm Detroit. Hey, can I pair up Trae Young with Cade Cunningham, but I gotta give up maybe Thompson, maybe Ivy, maybe a couple of picks.
Yeah, I would
And
hang
I
up on
think
Atlanta.
but what I'm saying is like I think that those calls are gonna be made now because we have like I said, criminal justice. We have the precedent. The precedent is this. Like, okay, so we can all use this as our
Mhm.
talking point when we go into these offices and talk to the owners. Like, listen, all they got for Luca. I think Milwaukee would give. I think Brooklyn would give up this much for
For
to
Giannis.
go get for
And
Giannis.
and the Spurs need a new coach. I think Willie Green might be out in New Orleans. Not all his fault, but it just is what it is. And then lastly, Portland still hasn't given Chauncey Billups a contract.
That's a Mike Malone spot.
I mean, they won 35 games this year, and I mean, who would have thought that? Had a 10-game winning streak at one point this season. So, but this is the last year of his contract. He still hasn't gotten an extension. So
Both of those guys getting fired just basically sealed Chauncey's fate.
that's probably correct. Sad, but
Yeah.
true. So, speaking of fate, we got holdouts coming to college football. Nico not practicing today. The orange-white game is tomorrow. His dad came out and said, saying, nah, I don't know nothing about these negotiations. Like, yeah, you don't know nothing about them, but why your son ain't at practice?
I'm torn. I look at it
I'm
like
not.
this. It's a new process.
I'm not
It's
torn.
new. It's a new process. It's what was needed. Because if we think about all the money that was generated by these players and for them not to get any of it. Like for me, we talk about I've heard pundits like people who were against it saying like, oh, if you pay them, they're professionals, and you know Ohio State's going to be able to pay more for their players. Yeah, they earn that.
Yeah, I
They
got
have a
some
Nike
details for
deal.
you here too.
They have hundreds of years of legacy in football. But that's the case anyway, because Toledo can't pay, can't provide the same education as far as like scholarships
I know
and
I
the
got you.
money and the stipends as
Absolutely.
Ohio State could anyway. Nor could they get the same amount of cleats. Nor could they hire the amount of coaches. Nor could they get the bigger weight room. So all these big schools were already using money as leverage and an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So now that Tennessee can give their starting quarterback $8 million, they still have to have the facilities to keep them there. They still have to have the coaches to help them be good, because I'm pretty sure there's boosters who went to some small school in Texas that are now landman, oil money millionaires or billionaires, and they will love to see Texas State, get a top 5 guy. But you still got to be able to fill the stands. You still got to be able to give that person who's a 5-star quarterback or 5-star linebacker the big college experience. These other schools were going to do that anyway.
Hey, don't be hating on San Marcos. So it sounds like Nico's deal is around 2.4 million right now. But then what happened was Carson Beck and Darian Mensah both got 4 million. One from Miami, one from Duke. And Tennessee's like, hey, we got more money than them. But the other side piece of this, Mr. Logical, is that the transfer portal opens on Wednesday. So this is the absolute wrong time to be having this conversation with Nico.
Wrong for Tennessee or wrong
Yeah,
for
wrong
Nico?
for Tennessee. They should have been having this.
Especially when they know that if Oregon knows a number is 4 million and he can enter the transfer portal in 2 days, or this
And he's
is
a West Coast
shortly.
kid.
He's a West Coast kid, and Oregon knows, like, yo, man, we'll give you 4.5.
I think Oregon's fine with Dante though. But what if he goes to USC with Lincoln Riley? What if Lincoln Riley starts poking around? Saying
I
pause.
mean, he's a Cali kid. He should be worried about anyone besides Cal or Stanford. But
Yeah.
I mean, Stanford
So with
gives you
that
that
being
college
said,
experience. Might be a little tough education wise, but I say USC, UCLA. It's a lot.
yeah.
Like, it's a lot of people. And I get it. It sucks that you could potentially lose your player. But you had a quote you want, or a tweet you want to read.
Well, I got
And
some. Well,
I have
I'm gonna
thoughts
get to
on that.
that. I'm gonna get to that. But let me fill some of these gaps that you brought up.
Okay.
So we've been talking about the House case against the NCAA. The swimmer Grant House suing the NCAA, and this is where a lot of this stuff that I'm about to say is coming from. So the NCAA has agreed to pay about 2.8 million in damage billion. I'm sorry, 2.8 billion in damages to past and current athletes. In violation of antitrust laws. Okay, now you brought up, hey, Toledo can't do this. They don't have the facilities. They don't have this. They don't have. Okay. So a part of this is that the NCAA has made a proposal to limit the scholarships some of these bigger schools can give. So that's probably going to be a problem because Alabama's going to give the NCAA the middle finger. Like this is a part of the stuff that I always talk about, breaking away from the NCAA, because the NCAA is going to say, you know what, Toledo can have 85 scholarships, you can have 65, and Alabama's going to say, screw you, I'm going home. Okay, now that's that. Ted Cruz, yes, that Ted Cruz
That man
is,
has his hand in everything.
yeah, he's drafting a bill that can provide limited antitrust protections for school, which includes identifying the players as students and not employees. We've heard that before. So what's coming down the pipe now? There's going to be a revenue sharing formula. So far, what they're thinking is that the way this is going to work formulaically, I think that's a word. We'll see.
Okay. I like it.
Formulaically, 75% of the revenue sharing is going to be shared with the football players, 15% to the men's basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and then 5% combined for all the remaining sports. Now, obviously, each school is going to have their own formula, but that's the general gist of how they think it will be set up. But the problem is, and this is me talking now, the problem is Title IX. You know what I'm saying? Because if you got an athlete like a Livy Dunn, for example, coming through, you can't just give her all the 5% that you set aside to the other sports either. So it gets a little, you know what I'm saying? It gets a little.
So I think the revenue from what I read about NIL, the NIL money is money raised
from by boosters.
outside sources
Yes.
for the school. So
And the
the
revenue sharing
revenue
is coming
would
from the school.
yeah, the revenue sharing would impact NIL. Like I'm not an economics
Or
guy,
you
but
can
I
still do
figured that
both. You can still do
you
both,
can
like,
take
you know
the,
what I mean? Yeah.
you take the revenue sharing, and that goes to the team. So the pool needs to be upgraded, and the swim team gets their cut of that 5%. They fix the pool, or they get new uniforms, or they use it to get whatever transportation upgrades, and
Right.
the same thing for the basketball team. So you use that revenue money. So if you get $1 million for Toledo, 750,000 goes to the football team, and then the 250 goes to everybody else. You use that money for what you could do for the team, and
So
then when you have Livy done, you get the LSU alum boosters. They break her off for 1.8 million, or she gets sponsored by Body Armor, or Under Armour, or something like that.
right. So then you got so this goes into effect, the revenue sharing goes into effect starting July 1st. And initially it's going to start at 20.5 million, and then it'll go up each year because so far this is a 10-year agreement. So annually it'll get a little higher as time goes on. So, so now with all that being said, NIL deals have to meet fair market value. So the only problem is, how do you determine what the fair market value is? What analytics or metrics are you using to say that this is fair value? So there you go. So now the tweet that Mr. Logical referenced that I wanted to read. So I just wanted to
Yes.
do some housekeeping right there real quick. So here we go. This is the tweet, and this is from former NFL quarterback that goes by the name of Sean Salisbury. I'm sure people remember him.
Yeah, he's been in a
And
couple of movies.
yeah, Super Bowl quarterback. He went to the Super Bowl. All right. So, quote, and this is in response to the story about Nico. If this is how we're going to go, this is how we are going to do college football, then they should be able to cut players at any time they want, attach buyout numbers to every player, and put a salary cap on the money available in the portal. He didn't stop there. Time to give these players a taste of reality. Also, need to tie academic progress and performance with their ability to get any money. We no longer have college sports, end quote. What say you?
Uh, First of all, I try to like get people's point of view, and I think he's referencing how it used to be,
Uh-huh, the
like
good old days.
the good old days, the good part of the good old days. Not understanding that a lot of people think these athletes were getting 4 year scholarships when they go put on scholarship. They weren't.
They
They were
weren't.
getting annual renewed scholarships based on performance.
Don't break your
So
leg.
then you rehab for 6 months. If you're not ready to go, then you don't get your scholarship renewed. You transfer. If the coach gets a better job, and they're gonna bring in they fire a coach and they hire a new coach, that coach is gonna bring in whoever he or she recruited to go to their previous school to come to this new school. It happened when Calipari went from Memphis to Kentucky. Some guys were on the Kentucky roster. Was it Tubby Smith that got fired? Yeah.
No. Tubby, it was Tubby, then Billy Gillespie, because he got a DUI and got fired, and then I believe it was Kyle after that.
So Cal came. He sat down with all the guys that were on the roster the year before and said, "Hey, I think you're a good basketball player, but I'm going to bring in my guys." So now it
Well,
was
he
no
took
transfer
like
portal.
8 players off Kentucky's team this year
Yeah,
when he went to
but it was
Arkansas.
but that was before the transfer portal. So a lot of those guys end up transferring to your small either HBCUs or like Division 2 schools, because if you had to go to another Division 1 school, you had to sit out for a year. So that was the old way. This is
Mhm.
the new way. The realistic way is simply this: you're selling video games, merchandise with Florida Gators and a 15 on it. We know who that is. Currently, it was Anthony Richardson a couple of years ago. It was Tebow before that. We know who that is. Number one was Percy Harvin. We knew who 12 was at Michigan, but these guys weren't getting a dime, but yet 100,000 people in the stands are wearing all this Michigan gear, paying for these tickets, buying these $12 beers and $8 hot dogs. And the people playing on the field are out there on hope and wishes. I hope I don't get hurt. I hope they bring me back. I hope the coaching staff comes back because I didn't get to showcase myself this year. And if I get a new coaching staff that comes in, I don't have anything on film, I'm out of here. Now I got to pick up my life and move and I have no money. And I'm not even allowed to get money. I'm not even allowed to work. I'm not allowed to do anything but play football. But yet, if I don't get on the field, I'm just out here.
Mm-hmm.
So it still might be the case for some guys. But if I'm not one of those guys, if I'm a guy that's like, hey, I'm out here to get this money, do it. But the case of life is going to pop with Nico, where they say, listen, man, we're not gonna pay you more than 2.4 million. And you decide, you know what, I'm a transfer. Now you're leaving Tennessee, SEC country. They love football. You might go to another place. They don't love football that much. USC, I think USC likes being USC. I'm not sure if they put more into their football program than Tennessee does. The facilities, the vehicles, the coaches, the plane, whatever it is, I'm pretty sure Tennessee probably puts a few more shekels into that football pot than USC does. The talent level, so it's like you'll get your rude awakening. I don't think it needs to be legislated that they get buyouts and like that's not like because you can leave college if you want to leave college. Just because I'm playing sports, it doesn't mean I'm like beholden to this university. I could leave. But you would send me away if you got another 5-star recruit.
This is true. This is true. So first of all, let me go back to the start of this conversation because I said because you said that you were kind of torn, and I said that I'm not. Nico, take your ass to practice. You're making $2.4 million. You're jealous that some dudes that are better than you so far, or at least have played better than you, are making more money than you. So that's first and foremost. Second of all, Tennessee may just have to bite the bullet because, like I said, the transfer portal opens on Wednesday, and I don't know who's jumping in the portal that is going to be better than what you thought you had when you recruited Nico in the first place. So don't lose Nico over pride. That's the second thing. Third of all, and I don't mean it disrespectfully to Nico. I just mean that first it was, hey, we're not getting paid. We're being slaves and all this kind of stuff. Now you're getting paid, and now you just want to get greedy too, because if you wanted more than 2.4, before Carson Beck or Mensa got their money, you could have negotiated higher than 2.4 in the first place. You know what I mean? So I think that this does set a precedent that may turn ugly. It might not be Nico, but next year there might be 3 or 4 quarterbacks that pull this same type of thing.
Yeah, but if you think about if we go top 35 teams, maybe a team that's 35 could do the SMU run and get to the top. There's so many players coming and going. The likelihood of you getting this many holdouts, because the school still has leverage. I talk about this all the time with youth sports. You can go to any town in America, they have a youth football program, and somehow the shoulder pads and the helmets, hell, sometimes even the practice pants are available from this organization. I don't know where the money comes from or where the equipment comes from, but there's a plethora of football players that started out at 6, 7, 8 years old, and they're going to be at the doorstep of your campus. So when you're out here trying to negotiate, you're replaceable. And even Nico, like there's a quarterback out there that they can get. There's a guy that knows a guy from another school that's currently on Tennessee that can hit up a friend of his that he went to high school with who
100%.
might be a backup at LSU. And it's like, yo, dog, Nico's out here a while and he don't want to take 2.4 million.
100%.
He
But
like, yo, dog, give me 1.7. I come up there, and then transfer portal happens. So like, you can be replaced. So it's a slippery
100%.
slope.
But this is the problem. I would agree with you fully if this was January's transfer portal. We're talking about April now. We're talking about spring football happening. And, Nico knows the system. Nico was there last year. So he's not a guy that they just brought in versus a guy that I got 3 months to try to whip into shape. And I got Bama on my schedule. I got Georgia on my schedule. I lost my best wide receiver already as well. I lost my running back to the NFL draft, and I'm trying to bring in another quarterback to fine tune and speed up in 3 months. I
Yeah,
don't know
like
if
I
that's
said,
worth it.
it's a double edged sword playing a leverage game. I just believe that this isn't going to be the standard because it's not a
Whoa, no, no, no,
winning
no, no,
it's
not
not a winning
standard,
formula. Oh,
not standard, but it could happen enough that it becomes a yearly occurrence.
it'll be yearly, but it'll be one guy, and then when it goes poorly, it'll be a cautionary tale. Because the NFL, before guys were holding out, then the owner's like, "Cool, we're gonna fine you $50,000
But
a
you just
day."
said it yourself. If Oregon calls him up, you know what I mean, or whatever, or somebody of that ilk that has that type of money,
Yeah,
it may
you're gonna
not go
lose them.
poorly.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that if you're Tennessee, you have to understand that the 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 way you know you have a good business deal is if each side walks away from the table and they don't get what something that they wanted. That's how you know it's a good deal. Because you're gonna want $4 million. They're gonna want to give you 2.4. You're gonna have to compromise on 3.6. Cool. You didn't get the 4. You didn't get to stay at 2.4. You're gonna have to understand like you're not gonna get everything you want because this person has options. Tennessee has options. Nico has options. So you guys gonna have to figure out how to way to break bread because he could go somewhere else. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But if he goes somewhere else and he gets this 4 million and he shows enough promise and enough talent that maybe, if he has to transfer again, Florida State calls and say, "Hey man, we'll give you 4.2 million to leave Oregon. Come down here." It's gonna happen when you're talent, like it's talent versus tolerance. So Tennessee has to understand, like, listen, you rarely, I don't think they've pulled a lot of 5-star quarterbacks out of California in their recruiting history. I don't think that's a common thing for the Tennessee Volunteers. So you have to understand that piece. You can look at it like, you know what, we could do it again, or let's get this resolved. Because if you think about it long
Or
term,
that affects you
it's not
getting
that
the
much
next
money.
5-star, regardless of where he's from.
Yeah. So it's like
So
it won't affect you long term. That, like I said, that $1 million can be recouped. 100,000 people come to the stadium. Charge them an extra dollar.
well, they already going up on the ticket prices, remember?
Yeah, they were the first school to do that.
The 5%. Yep. So, but as we're talking about football, it's starting to get a little chilly in here. So I'm feeling the draft. So the NFL draft is coming up in a few weeks. And first, let's just take it from the top, Mr. Logical. Let's just take it from the top. You always talk about how, oh, everybody's blowing smoke. Like, don't trust anything that anybody says. So
Right.
look, I think Cam Ward's a good player, right? He ain't Andrew Luck. He ain't Peyton Manning. So are we really convinced that Tennessee is taking him at number one, no questions asked about it?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not convinced simply because I don't know what the gap is from Shador to Cam in the eyes of the scouts and the GMs, but my eye test, it's not that far off.
Okay.
Shador has multiple levels of success. He had a down year. He bounced back. He's shown, like Deion talked about his arm strength. He was like, "Oh, I know he threw a 50-yard game-winning touchdown rolling to his left, and he's right-handed. So I don't know if his arm strength He did it 2 plays in a row on top of that because the other guy dropped it. The first Shepard dropped the first one. Then he rolled out, did it again, rolled to his left, threw a right-handed touchdown. Handling the pressure, handling the scrutiny. I think he does that well. I did read a report that people feel like he's too honest in his interviews. You know
I
how
did
like
see that. Mm-hmm.
how Dion told the Giants they had all the recruits to take a test, and he was like, "What number y'all picking at?" They were like 10. He's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna be on the board. I'm not taking this test." And he walked out the room. Granted, it's probably like the fish story that he keeps telling every year, and it's different, but I'm not sold that Tennessee's taking Cam Ward because honestly, I don't know if Tennessee is a quarterback away from being successful. I'm not sure if somebody else doesn't call and give them an order they can't refuse or a trade offer they can't refuse, and they trade out of one. So like it's so many things going on. We looked at it. We talked about it the other day. Shador, sliding. We talked about New Orleans, and we saw the tweet today from Lou Riddick, and then Dion put the eye emoji. But I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. I remember Chicago was trying to do it last year for no reason. It was like, yo, dog, we all know
Yeah.
you're trade. Like
See, I
they
think
could have just traded Justin Field early and then drafted Caleb Williams and then it's smart, but they went to the smoke and mirrors thing and missed out on opportunities to get him other draft picks.
so. This is the thing. I agree with you that Tennessee's not a quarterback away. I think that Tennessee thinks that they're a quarterback away because you got to remember last offseason, they went and got L'Jarius Sneed. They brought in Tony Pollard. They brought in Calvin Ridley. They brought in Tyler Boyd to play in the slot and be the third down guy. They went and got the linebacker from the Rams and then traded him midseason for another linebacker. So I think that Tennessee thinks that they're right there because if you look at their division, for example, right, like you got Houston and they've been having injuries. Tank Dell's been hurt. They lost Stephon Diggs in free agency. They picked up Christian Kirk. Their running game was nondescript because Joe Mixon was hurt half the year last year. And the way that the NFL works, there's always teams that we see in the playoffs one year that don't appear the next year. So now you ask yourself, do I fear Indianapolis because they went out and got Charvarius Ward? They still got Anthony Richardson at quarterback, so I feel pretty good.
That's 55%, 52% maybe.
Yeah, and then their backup is Daniel Jones, who you're hoping wasn't damaged with whatever happened in New York. And then
I don't think he even knows anything was wrong. I think he's like, oh well, it's all over. So
and then you got Jacksonville, who's still trying to figure out this Trevor Lawrence thing with a new head coach as well. So I think that Duval. So I think Tennessee thinks that they're on the brink of winning this division.
They're on the brink, because I think 9-8 could win this division. They're basically the AFC South, the NFC South is second cousins. Like I said, if I'm gonna go, I haven't heard anything about Dion saying no to Tennessee and pulling the Archie Manning, like, hey, we didn't want to go to Tennessee. And he's trying to pick their spots. Cleveland signed Joe Flacco again, so that makes it even more complicated. Like, why would you bring in Shador with Kenny Pickett, who was very sour when Russell Wilson came in? So I can't imagine him being very helpful to Shador. So I think Cleveland is probably out of the Shador quarterback market. Now that I think of it, with having those two guys in there, because it's like Joe Flacco still thinks he can start. Kenny Pickett thinks he can start. And Shador will be better than both of them, but the three of them wouldn't help each other get better.
Is Travis Hunter really going top 3?
I think so. I think because if you draft him, right, and he wants to play both sides of the ball, cool. You're going to play primarily defense because we think you're a better corner. And we're going to have you rotate in slot wide receiver because New England runs, like, let's say if he goes to New England runs a lot of 2 tight ends. That's very true. He is delusional. But he was a big man on campus at Pitt, and I think that never, when he went, then he got drafted.
Then he got drafted there,
Then he got drafted there, so it was like, I got all these shots, and it's like, nah, dog, like you're an average quarterback.
Now you got wearing gloves, dog.
And the gloves, like I think wearing the gloves, I think that hurt Teddy Bridgewater too. It was like, yo, take the damn gloves off, but at least put it on your offhand. But yeah, so I think if you're New England and you run, because I mean they've been terrible at picking wide receiver playmakers. Like I think Jalen Polk had he had like a game's worth of catches all season. It was like 11 catches for 85 yards or something. It's like, no, you can't, y'all can't call a drag route for him. Just a
including one that
simple,
would have been a game winner if he could have kept his damn foot in bounds.
just like give him the listen, the guy only has 5 catches in how many weeks? Oh, okay, cool. First down, first possession. Let's call a simple drag route, maybe a little pick play with the tight end, maybe push the tight end up the field so the linebacker has to carry him up the field a little bit. And let's get the ball in his hands early. Like, I don't know how hard that is as an offense. Like, yo, we drafted a guy. Let's get him some early quick touches, maybe some outs, maybe a slant, something simple. Not the way you got to read all these defenders. Like, listen, man, get to the spot. I'm gonna hit my back foot, get you the ball. I think Travis Hunter is gonna be one of those guys that you could play at corner and you put him in wide receiver, especially in New England, and then he could get open to the point where it's
Yeah,
like,
I
all
was
right, Drake
shocked
May has to throw in the ball.
Well, I was shocked because you know how much I love Mina Kimes, and she went on the record and said that Travis is the best wide receiver in the draft. She didn't say he was the best corner in the draft. She said he was the best wide receiver in the draft. That's a little much.
I think he's a dynamic playmaker. I think
That he is.
all eyes being on Colorado for 2 years, and he's proven. So it's like he played a lot of snaps, and like people are trying to like knock that for the Heisman. Like, oh, we're giving this award because he played a lot of snaps. I'm like, yo, he's top
He didn't
five.
just play a lot of snaps,
He
he
was top
dominated.
5 in 2 positions, and he played the entire game. Like that's very difficult to do. If you were playing guard and like offensive tackle and defensive tackle, if you were playing both of those and you were the best, you were the Buckets Award for offensive tackle, and you were All American at defensive tackle, like that's very tough. That's a lot of work.
Right.
Um, that's essentially what
So
he did. So I just think that because he's made, we saw his plays live. It weren't replays because we were watching a lot. Most of the country were watching Colorado games, and you saw the forced fumble, you saw the crazy catches, you saw the one-handed catches with the dude face masking him. You saw, him take a screen, take a little bubble screen to the house often. I think that is intriguing. And if I'm New England, I'm pulling the trigger. He's
so
best player on the board at 4, especially.
well, I was going to say, so let's walk this out for a second. We're not doing our mock draft right now. This is just conversation. So let's go with Tennessee takes Cam Ward. The Browns take Travis Hunter at 2. Let's say that.
Okay.
What do the Giants do at 3? Do they trade it? Do they because it's
You
too
you
because they got Russ and Jameis, right? So obviously neither one of them are the quarterback of the future, though.
correct.
So do you trade back and think that you can get Shador later, or do you just go somewhere else as far as position?
If you think you want Shador, I wouldn't roll the dice with it because you don't want a team like
The Saints.
the Saints. Like, so New England, if you're at 4, you played a terrible year. You went 4-13. You probably lose a couple of games. You would have the number one. I think if they went 3-14, they'd have been the number 1 overall pick, right? Like the
That's probably
percentages,
right.
something like that.
Yeah, that's
So you
probably
won an
right.
extra game for no reason. It moves you out of number 1 pick. Now you're 4. You wouldn't want to trade past 8. And I don't think Carolina, the Jets, Vegas, or Jacksonville loves Abdul Carter that much to move up to 4, to give
And
up whatever they have to give up to
yeah, see,
4.
that
And
was
then
going to
for
be my
New
next
England to go down
question
to
because I
8.
wonder how far he's going to fall with the foot injury that he had, that he couldn't do the combine and everything. So
I imagine that right now we're in April. Whatever injury he has, he's young. So even if he can't, you don't get him to start the season, you keep him healthy. You're playing 17 games. So as long as you get him you get 12 games out of him. If you let him rest for 5 weeks, you get him in your building, you get him with your doctors. Before you draft him, obviously, you make sure
I mean,
he's
I
going
would
to be
like
able to play
Travis
this
Hunter.
year.
I would like Travis Hunter in Jacksonville myself, but if you're gonna play him at receiver every so often, maybe you could put him with the Giants and have him across from elite neighbors every so often. I don't know. That could
I
be
think Tennessee might pull a whoop whoop and take him number one overall.
well, if that happens, like I don't know, I might have to give you
Because
some
they're
kind of
running it back.
award.
They're running it back with
I
Will
might have to
Levis.
give you some kind of award if that happens. Ashton Genty, I'm hearing that the Raiders are interested, the Bears are interested. Maybe they play a little tug of war, but I don't know. I think that Omarion Hampton from North Carolina is going to be the best running back in this draft. But I understand the buzz about Ashton Genty. So with the way that the league is going right now and how the running back has been devalued, Saquon's bringing it back.
Correct.
Could you see the Raiders taking him as high as 6?
Well, I think the Raiders are locked in with their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I think they locked up their two best defensive linemen with getting Christian Wilkins from Miami last year, signing Max Crosby this offseason. I can see them going for a playmaker like Genty because you look at it like, oh, you overdrafted him. I got one pick in the first round. So if I want this guy, then that's the guy I'm going to get because if you trade out of 6, say you're the Raiders, right?
Right.
Dallas calls you, says they want to move up to 6. They want to give you 12. They want to give you 12. They want to give you a second this year and a first and a third next year. Because to get from 12 to 6, you got to give up a little bit more. And you're like, oh, no one's going to draft a running back that high. Dallas must want one of these top flight wide receivers that's still on the board. Maybe for whatever reason, Travis Hunter is still potentially on the board. And they call and you move down. And then Dallas takes him at 6.
Oh Lord.
It's not saying like that's the case, but
No,
it's
I'm
like
just saying that's a nightmare with like the way they talk about the Lakers. If Dallas gets Travis Hunter, oh my Lord, don't watch TV for a week.
yeah. Or if they move him to get Genty. So like you're just kind of hoping that the GMs and the coaches and the scouts believe this new narrative that the running back doesn't have value. And when you look at the last couple of Super Bowls, Christian McCaffrey was in there before, then Saquon. Isaiah Pacheco was a big key to Kansas City's offense.
Jersey, big jersey.
So it was like the last few Super Bowl champs ran the ball effectively. They didn't have just some average running back behind him. They had a guy that ran aggressively behind his pads, or a guy that ran well in that offense. So Bijan Robinson going 8 to Atlanta. He's been probably like the brightest spot
Third
in
leading rusher
Atlanta's.
last year.
So and he was getting a lot of touches.
Eric Henry with 1,900 yards last year.
Back,
Kyron Williams
and he had what 2,000 or 1,900. Then he had 18,
something like that. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
Kyron
So
Williams from the Rams. James Cook.
like these guys are. I don't
Right,
think
Riz.
that
That's
narrative
right.
really fits. So if I'm Vegas and Ashton Genty's on the board and I'm looking for a running back, I'm taking him at 6. I don't care what Mel Kiper says about value. This isn't Go Fish. I mean, like if he's there and I need a running back and he has great balance and you saw, him in big games with a team that essentially is, undersized, for lack of a better word.
And let's jump around a little bit because news came out today that Derek Carr may not be available in 2025. So as Dion sent out the tweet, number 9 just got interesting.
So he's not available injury
He may
wise.
not be injury wise. He's got a shoulder injury going on and may not be able to play this year.
Sounds like I'm taking my check and they're sending me home.
But now you got to play around because before you could presume, we were presuming that New Orleans would be looking at quarterbacks. But if that's true and he doesn't play and he's not on track to play, now we know that New Orleans is
It's
going
taking
quarterback.
Shador. Yeah.
So now who tries to play the phone game to jump in front of New Orleans?
No one.
Nobody?
Nobody. I don't see
Nobody?
because Arizona won't do it because they have Kyler Murray.
For
Atlanta
now.
won't do it. They draft a guy. Indianapolis is not going to do it because they got a young guy already that they have to figure out. Miami won't do it. Dallas won't do it. San
Yeah,
Francisco
Dallas just
won't do
brought
it.
in Joe Milton.
Chicago's not going to do it. Seattle just signed Sam Darnold, correct?
Correct.
They're not going to do it. Tampa Bay's not going to do it. Denver's not going
Pittsburgh.
to do it.
But
Pittsburgh,
that's a long jump though.
that's a long jump. And if
Yeah.
I'm New Orleans, I if I'm New Orleans and I'm willing to go into the season with any other quarterback that's not a rookie, like any quarterback that's available right now, either on my roster or a guy I can call to come to New Orleans and be our starting quarterback. If I'm willing to do that, then that means I got to get the best player available at 9 that's not a quarterback. So the trade with Pittsburgh wouldn't make sense because I'm missing out on 12 talented players. Not to mention, if I move back that far, maybe somebody else jumps ahead of me. They take a guy we need because they need so much. Their defense is old. They don't have any playmakers. I think Taysom Hill was their utility guy. You can't keep
He
relying
got
on that.
hurt. Hmm.
Yeah, he was always hurt. Alvin Kamara hasn't had 1,000 yard season. So they have so many holes that if you want to just get your quarterback now and then hope that some other rookies you draft, undrafted free agents, and some of the free agent signings can fill your team out. You're in a winnable division, so that helps. You're in a position to host a playoff game because your division does have its shortcomings. But if I'm Pittsburgh, I don't know how I get the 9, and if I'm New Orleans, I don't know if I want to go to 21.
Yeah, because like the market is dried up. So this is the thing though. So now with this Derek Carr news, could New Orleans jump into the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes as a stopgap, like a quarterback to just hold it down for a year if they
I would
can't?
not do that because they're already old. There
I
is
know, I know.
if
If
you were
it,
if you
so
were let me see Pittsburgh.
because there's not much out here. Like there's Carson Wentz, there's Easton Stick, Teddy Bridgewater, there's Pro Bowl Huntley, C.J. Beathard, Brett Riffin, Desmond Ritter,
Yeah,
Jeff.
yeah, you're not getting any of those guys.
You're
If
not
you need
getting
a
any of those
quarterback,
guys.
you're going to draft a guy and say, "Hey, we're going to develop you in our system and hope it works."
Or I guess,
Aaron Rodgers,
or you start Spencer Rattler, I guess, and then bring in one of those dudes that I just said as the backup.
unless you know that you are in rebuild mode fully, and you're going to dump a bunch
I
of
think they have to
guys.
be. They lost Lattimore as well. You know what I mean?
Like if they plan on playing out the season, and then October 6th before the trade deadline, just unloading all these guys and just
I wonder if
recouping
they're
these
going to
draft
lose
picks.
Olave. Like if somebody's going to come for Olave. You
Or
know,
do they run it back with Spencer Rattler? You get the best player available at 9, and you wait for number 16 from Austin, Texas, to come back and play.
come play at
Yeah,
home.
come play at home with your grandfather made his legacy. That wouldn't surprise me either.
It's
So,
not
like I
rigged
said,
though. It's not rigged though.
I mean, they're gonna suck. I mean, it's like they're just gonna like New Orleans. New Orleans, if they run it back with Spencer Rattler at 9, you're probably gonna go. I imagine at 9, you're probably willing to go to 12 or 13 if you're not gonna get a quarterback. If
Yeah,
you like,
could you get a receiver like to help Spencer Rattler out?
you get an offensive lineman to help Arch Manning out next year.
Okay.
You build your team to just play out this year, and then you're in the sweepstakes for ours. I know we talk about tanking and how it's very tough in the NFL because these guys every day they put stuff on tape. It's an audition for either
Your next
your
team
your
or
award consideration because like you can be an all pro player on a team that's just poor. Like
right.
you could be a linebacker that has 145 tackles, a couple of forced fumbles on a pick, even if your offense is being led by a guy who is like Nathan Peterman level bad.
Dang,
You
you
can
still
still
talking
do your
about
thing.
Anthony Richardson? I thought we moved on.
I said Nathan Peterman.
I heard Anthony Richardson.
Oh no, that's it. But yeah, so you can still put good stuff on film. Maybe even get a midseason trade if you're 6 games in and you're already at 62, 65 tackles. So it's hard for NFL teams to just because it's such a physical game. So to tell an offensive guard who has to just block his ass off every down, an offensive tackle every down, I got to stop Khalil Mack. I got to stop Watt. I got to stop Miles Garrett on all these possessions. And you're cool with just this below average quarterback losing this game so we can get another guy next year. That's not gonna reign well in the locker room.
In Buffalo, please do not make a trade that helps the Kansas City Chiefs. Please don't do that again.
I don't think they'll take any call from that state for anything. I've bet if a player gets drafted to Buffalo and he has a Kansas City area code, they're gonna make him like, nah, you gotta get a Buffalo number.
I think
We
Denver.
don't. We got that area code blocked on everybody's phone when they come in the building.
I think that Denver, jumping around a little bit. I think Denver may have to get Amarion Hampton if Ashton Genty is already gone, because right now, coming into next season, they don't have any running back on their roster that's run for more than 600 yards. So that might be a chance to fill a hole there. Maybe you grab another receiver, like might be a little high for Ibuka still from what I've been reading, but Luther Burden has quite the range. But let's talk about Tetaroa McMillan for a second. That's the guy, like he's the receiver, the big receiver in this draft that, kills everybody. But I guess he does the Mike Vick thing and doesn't watch film either.
Yeah, you guys got to stop talking so much. Like, I don't know if I need to just open a PR firm. I might have to because some of these guys and the way they answer questions is ridiculous. I saw a video today. It was like they were like some relationship camp or something, and this woman in the audience referred to her husband as like a 50-year-old man child or something. And the guy on stage was like, listen, well, if that's how you see him, then that means how you approach him, and that's how he's going to behave. He's going to react that way because that's how you see him. Blah 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 blah. So your words matter. Like you have to speak life into whomever you're communicating with. So when you're a wide receiver, like Gronk said it after he won some Super Bowls, but he was playing with Tom Brady. He did it in his post career interview. Mike Vick did it in his post Atlanta time. Like, listen, I didn't watch any film in Atlanta. It was super dynamic. And then he was like, oh, yeah, I didn't watch any film. I just relied on X, Y, and Z. But he talked about it like it was a bad thing that I didn't watch film. So for this guy to be a rookie, and I watched some of the highlights before the season last year, and everyone was talking about, I was like, yo, um, he is, I mean, he's just a big wide receiver. I think he just runs to spots and just figures, I'm 6'4", you're 5'11". I'm just gonna jump you.
Ain't that what
But
Mike Evans does?
now Mike Evans has a lot of touchdowns in his career, and he has consecutive years of 1,000 yards. It's not just I'm gonna win this jump ball. Like it's working on route combinations,
That
working
ain't
with
what I
you know.
heard.
Yeah, I just feel like I said, I watched some of his like his 1-on-1 highlights or whatever, and this is before the season. I just thought like, yeah, I don't know if that's gonna work in the NFL because he just basically just runs up and just gets to a spot and says, throw it up high. I'm like,
I
yeah,
think
but a good corner is going to wait for you to get your hands up and it's going to stick it in and just rip it out when you're coming back down on the ground.
that Steve Smith doesn't like him. I did see that video of him like ripping Ted apart. I'm a Luther Burden guy. I like him a lot. I just think, what up, Mike? I just think that at this point,
One Mike podcast.
it's coaching now. This is the NFL. You go to the right team, you go to the right coach, and teams are either going to make you get with the program or you're going to be out the program. So, I'm not
I
too
just hope he
worried about
doesn't turn
that.
out like Chase Claypool because I thought Chase Claypool was going to be a really good wide receiver because I thought he was that like that David Boston, like that Vincent Jackson, like that. Just that, you know what, he could end up being. Maybe if he doesn't work out at wide receiver, you move him to tight end or something like that. I just thought like he had like the frame to be successful, but you know, you just if your mentals aren't locked in, then it won't work. But saying stuff like I don't watch film, and I think he was like at an In and Out doing his interview.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like even that is like, yo, present yourself upright. Sit in a chair, sit in the hotel room, get a nice backdrop. And I get that you're doing all this stuff, but you have to understand this is a job interview. Like the NFL doesn't
Mhm.
need you. When like Tom Brady said, like, listen, when I got injured and they carried me off the field and they blew the whistle to start the next play, it was like I just tore my ACL. I'm being carried to the locker room, and the game just moved on. So I think sometimes talent, man, it gets in your way of common sense. Like I always say, talent versus tolerance. If you can't even be bothered to have a professional interview that was either scheduled by you or your people, like that's a red flag. That's a red flag for me.
Yeah. So Mike, he said basically, long story short, Steve Smith said that Tet leaves a lot on the field, and he thinks while he is the number one ranked receiver in this draft, he's not the number one receiver in this draft. So that's a summary of what he said. You know,
Yeah,
he
like I
said a
said,
lot.
I felt that off of his tape before last season started.
Yeah, so you know, so we'll see. You know, I think Tet is gonna be a guy like for real. Like I think
It's an interview. Like everything you say out loud when you are in a
a job interview.
when you're in a job interview, like it matters. Like your presentation matters. That's why, like, I get you don't have to do the song and dance and give all these same
But
generic
you can't say
answers.
I don't watch film.
You can't say
Right?
I don't watch film while not paying it. Like, why not? You know, you're not even like attentive to the people doing it. I get it. You got to eat. Then do the interview quickly
I
and
think
then
Tet's
eat.
one of those dudes that the game just comes easy to. So, you know, we'll see. You know, we'll see what happens. I mean, ask Travis Hunter about him. I'll just leave it at that. You know, so as we continue on, is there anybody that stands out to you, like maybe a player that isn't being talked about or isn't being talked about a lot at least?
I got a player I think is making a mistake. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I was talking about it. I think Quinn Ewers is making a mistake by entering the draft. I think he should have looked around and
Hey, I got one message for Quinn Ewers. UPS is hiring.
because I think he's probably a third round QB. Maybe he's gonna be good. Like I thought he was good, but like I said, I think he made a mistake going to Ohio State early, going to Texas. Um, the defensive end from Tennessee, all the reports
Oh,
came out
James
that
Pierce. Yeah.
James Pierce is pretty much uncoachable.
No,
I
not
just
Golden over Tet. Golden is the golden boy, no pun intended, though, in this draft.
yeah. Who's the guy that just turned himself in
Oh,
for
Isaiah Bond.
Isaiah Bond, which is ironic that his last name is Bond.
You know, and he went to
Uh,
Texas as well.
yeah, Texas guy. Um, like I said,
Ooh, I like that.
I
Not for
think
the Raiders, though. You don't deserve them.
I think Pittsburgh is gonna be one of those teams that gets Pierce. I think they're gonna like, hey, Mike, can you get this guy in line?
Hey,
6'5", 265. He's like, listen, he's basically just a tall Antonio Brown.
I'm trying
You
to
can
get
handle
Pierce.
that.
I'm trying to get Pierce over to Landover, Maryland.
Yeah, but you need the structure. I think Dan Quinn he's established coach. I think you need
Hey,
structure.
as Rob Parker would say, we got the bones, we got the structure.
Listen, I heard a rumor that Philly's gonna be making a lot of moves. Don't let him be available where Philly is because they just lost Sweat. But they just gonna
Yeah,
retool.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think, and if you said second round grade, I get it. But Philly's like, listen, we are a first round talented
We're a
team.
fucking machine.
Yeah. So like we could get anybody in any position we want. If we like them, it's like cool. We're 32. We don't even need to trade up. We'll
Yeah,
take
that's
this
basically
six
a
foot
second
five
round
guy.
pick.
Yeah, we'll take this guy. The other defensive end from Texas A&M, I liked him. I know
Which
Atlanta.
one? Scorton, or are you talking about Stewart?
Stewart.
Okay.
Yeah. I know Atlanta's like we always talked about. They're going to get a defensive end. Like I said, I prefer to
Yeah, I
get
actually had Atlanta taking. I had Atlanta taking Georgia in my little draft I was playing with.
if the player goes to Georgia, Atlanta won't draft him. They'll sign him in 7 years after he's been on two teams. They'll sign him and give him money, but like they won't just go down to Athens and be like, "Yo, dog, who you got?" Philly will. For some reason, Philly is flying from
Got the
Philly
pipeline.
to Hartsfield Airport, driving out to Athens and just picking like, "Yo, let me get these
Because we
8 dudes
still
over here in
remember
2 years. Put
Georgia
these
still
dudes on
remembers
ice for me."
Georgia still remembers what the Falcons did to DJ Shockley. They ain't forgave y'all yet.
So Shockley's a good, he does like behind the scenes, all 22 work for Atlanta. But yeah, like I
Yeah.
said, if he goes to Georgia, Atlanta's not going to draft him.
So I was thinking
Um,
about Walter Nolan, from Ole Miss, formerly of Texas A&M. He was the big prize recruit in Jimbo class that him and Saban were beefing about.
ask
You
God
got
how he does his business.
him and Emmanuel Stewart at wide receiver, but Walter Nolan is a guy who I think is not getting a lot of talk that I think is going to be a force in the NFL. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be Bruce Smith or something along those lines, but I think he's going to be a factor. I brought up Amarion Hampton already. Maxwell Hairston, the corner out of Kentucky,
Yeah.
love him. Love him, love him, love him, love him, love him. So the problem with the corners in this draft, though, most of the corners that I like are coming off of some kind of injury. Will Johnson coming off the toe, but he's also small. He also only ran a 4.5, so I think teams are going to hold that against him maybe, so he might go a little lower than I think he should. You got Benjamin Morrison from
Is
Notre
a
Dame.
4.5 slow though? Like, is
When
that
you're like
considered slow?
5'9", 5'10", I feel like they expect you to be a burner. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Travis Hunter ran like a 4.5, you could live with that because he's listed at 6'1". If he's really 6'1", you could live
Yeah.
with that. But it's like remember we were talking about the NBA the other day. We were talking about how the little guard is gone. Like we were talking
Yeah.
about Pettiford from Auburn. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you're a good basketball player, but you're gonna be food on defense, and you're not exceptionally fast. You don't jump exceptionally high. So
Yeah.
I think that if you're a certain metric, they're looking for freak. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? If you will. Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame coming off the ACL, but I also love Xavier Watts at safety. And then Siobhan Revel. He told me how to pronounce his name. I watched the video today, and it looks like Siobhan Revel to me, but it's not Siobhan Revel. He's out
Yeah.
of East Carolina. He's coming off an ACL as well. If he wasn't coming off that ACL, I think he would be a top 12 pick, top 12 to 15 pick. But coming off of that ACL, he's probably going at the end of the first round. So knock knock, that means you, Buffalo.
I watched a couple South Carolina games. I like Kyle Kennard.
Oh, I love
Um,
Kyle Kennard. Yeah.
because I watch games through the lens of, man, I think Atlanta could get that guy in the second round. Get this guy here. Get this guy here. Like that guy looks explosive. Uh, Emmanuel Worry.
Yes, the safety. Yep, from South
Yeah,
Carolina.
I
Yep.
liked him. They compared him a lot to Derwin James. As long as he can keep his helmet up and not get penalties like Derwin James,
Yeah,
he's to be
Derwin James.
racking up. I think he has like an allotment in his check that just goes to fines.
Derwin
Uh,
James. Ugh.
yeah. So like I like those two players. I like SEC defensive linemen. I think they translate well to the NFL, because they're the ones they get the least amount of help. Like I think a lot of linebackers and corners benefit from the guys in the front.
Well, that's a good name, Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I like SEC defensive linemen. I think they're working up against, even if the guys they're working up against aren't the most skilled. We talked about Georgia's line last year that averaged 350 across the front.
Right.
They're like 6'6", 350. So a guy like Kennard battling them, a guy like Pierce battling those guys. I like the trench players because I think a lot of these guys benefit from the pressure that's created up front by
Mhm.
the defensive linemen. And we know a lot of these guys were just, they're superior athletes. We talk about, I've shared the Patrick Peterson high school highlights. He looked like a man amongst boys. And some college athletes are the same way, like Miles Garrett when he was in college. But like I said, I think that's why it just baffles me that Atlanta doesn't seem to end up drafting more SEC guys, considering that you have to see the high school highlights in that area because Georgia's a probably like top 4, top 5 high school football in the state. I think
And you got
Texas,
Florida right
California, Oregon.
there
You got Florida right there. So it's like, how are you not getting these SEC guys? The dude that weighs like 464 pounds from
from the
Florida.
Gators. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he'll get drafted because like we looked at his production, he had like 1.5 sacks and like 4 tackles for loss in his career.
If Bill Belichick was around, he'd be getting drafted.
If he could get to 390 with some technique, maybe. I mean, if he's played and lived at 400 plus pounds for all these years, if you can drop 65 pounds, 70 pounds off of him, because I'm pretty sure the NFL could figure out a way to work on his diet, so forth and so on, to get his strength up.
Right.
That could be a viable, like a 5th, 6th round flyer. I think that's something Philly would do. Yeah, you know
Mhm.
what? We got an extra 6th round pick for this. Let's
And
grab this guy and see if we can just have him next to Jalen Carter or have him in there on the tush push. Like, I don't know.
And just real quick, Denver did pull it out, against Memphis 117-109. The Joker, he does what the Joker does, 28, 16, and 12, 26, 16, and 12. Yeah, so I'm interested in a lot of receivers in this draft. Me and Mike, we've been talking about Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. Love him. He's going to be a great receiver for years to come. But there's a couple of wide receivers that I think are going to go later in the draft that I'm really interested in. I like Kyle Williams out of Washington State. He lost Cam Ward, obviously, because Cam Ward tucked tail and went to Miami. But, he still had 70 receptions, 1,198 yards, and 14 touchdowns. He was one of 4 wide receivers that had those numbers, along with Jeremiah Smith, Travis Hunter, and the other guy that I'm interested in, Nick Nash, who led FBS in all receiving categories, but he went to San Diego State. So he's going to be a tall slot receiver, I believe, and I just want to see how his career pans out. But one guy that I have my eye on, or actually two guys that I have my eye on as far as curiosity killed the cat, is I like Brashard Smith out of SMU, running back. I like him a lot. 1,332 yards, 14 touchdowns in their first year in the ACC. And then cover your ears, Mike. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what it is, but I really like Curtis Rourke out of Indiana. Quarterback, he came from Ohio. He has a little injury history, but so does Tyler Shuck, who the draft people are in love with. So I don't know. We'll see. Those are guys that I'm interested in.
I want to see where Scatterboo
I guess
goes.
pause. Is that what you're waiting for, Red?
I like Scatterboo. Um, I think being like I think for him, I think being a white running back, I think being the dog, I think the fact that he was most outstanding player in the game they lost, which he was the most outstanding player. And if they just play that 4th down better, like everything's different. Uh, I like his, I don't know, marketability. I guess I think that's something that you could track. I think that's probably a
Oh,
Dallas kind of
racist.
pick. I think it's a Dallas kind of pick. I don't know. The name's Scatterboo. He was like scat. He's like, it looks like a little
Brady
scat
Cook.
back. Like, so I like that, and I like that he's somewhat an underdog. Um, Obviously Henderson and Judkins from Ohio State. I don't know why they're not getting more love because the camera couldn't keep up with Henderson against Oregon.
There's just so many running backs in this
He
draft. You
he
still got
was
the running back from Virginia Tech.
he
There's a
was he
lot of
was
running back.
he was so, and I get it. The Ohio
Rock
State
Sanders.
line, they open up, lanes like the Red Sea. But when he hit that sideline and like the camera can keep up with him, I was like, this is different. This is a different kind of back. And it's like, I think sometimes these backs, they do get kind of downgraded because they do play behind great offensive lines. But so did Josh Jacobs, so did Derrick Henry, so did
And
Mark Ingram. Like, you still got to be able to hit the hole because everybody on the team isn't taking it to the house like those two guys were. So
And you know what, Mike? I ain't gonna let Mr. Logical get away with that either, because we ain't gonna talk about no running backs and not bring up Kalel Mullins, who, was supposed to take over. He took over for Donovan Edwards, who was supposed to take over for Blake Corum. And, like, he just took the job. He was like, this is mine. And then they gave him the ball 6 times on that game-winning drive against USC. It only went 90 yards. You know what I mean? But I
yeah,
haven't heard his name much in this draft process. But that's just how deep the running back position is.
yeah, I like Devin Neal. I think that
I like
game
Devin
against
Neal out of Kansas. Yep.
the game against Colorado. Because like I said, when NCAA when the game came out, like that's kind of like your introduction to a lot of these guys. And then I was like, I really watch some of these games, and some the running back position isn't going to get drafted crazy. I don't think we're going to see a situation where there's a run on running backs where 13, 16, 18, 19, 20 first round, these teams are all grabbing running backs. But they have to recognize like, yo, there's some dynamic talent there at this position. And we saw the Saquon highlights. He's a home run hitter. Bijan Robinson's a really, really good running back. He's not a
Yes,
home run hitter.
Residente.
I think his longest run he had of the year is probably like maybe 23, 24 yards, if that. So some guys are just really good. Some guys are exceptional. And I just hope that they look and see these guys are as exceptional at their position at the running back positions as the Abdul Carters, the Kennards, the Ted McMillans, the Cams, Shadors, like, and draft them accordingly and give them an opportunity. Because
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
we saw, like I said, I mean, I keep using Saquon, but even before then, Christian McCaffrey the year before, if they block up front a little better, or if Bosa stays home, he's a Super Bowl champ as well.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, there's still Dylan Sampson, my guy from Tennessee that I was talking all about last year, who could have got some Heisman votes. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. He's got that Derrick Henry type frame. There's running back Jaden Blue, Ollie Gordon. There's running backs all over this draft. But last question before we get out of here, Mr. Logical. I just got to ask this because you said what you said earlier. So if you were a team in the NFL draft and you were looking for a quarterback to take on as a project, you drafting Quinn Ewers this year or you drafting Carson Beck next year?
If I'm taking a project, I'm taking Quinn. I didn't see when everyone was picking when the people who were picking Georgia preseason to win the national championship beginning of this year, I was like, I'm not seeing Carson Beck leading them to the championship.
You took Georgia to win the national title.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. Not
I took Ohio State over Georgia. You took Georgia over Ohio State.
It wasn't because of Carson Beck. That's what it was. I think it was in spite of Carson Beck. I think I even mentioned it was like,
he's trying to lie to me, bro. Yeah. The boy.
Hold on, I don't. No.
Don't be lying to the America public.
No.
That's really how it was. I picked Ohio State over Georgia, and you picked the exact opposite. You picked the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think when we picked our 12 teams, this was like, as the matchups kind of played out, it's like, I don't see this team. It wasn't like, because like I said, we didn't really believe in Bama the preseason. So it just was like, I just thought I thought they were going to be consistently able to run the ball and control the line of scrimmage and not rely on Carson Beck,
which they were not able to do.
Yeah, and that's when it's. I'm like, yo, they can't run the ball.
And they got Travis Etienne's brother.
Yeah, and that's what I was like, okay, they're just going to control the line of scrimmage with the big offensive line. Yeah, so I do remember that, but like, I didn't think it was because Carson Beck was going to be the guy that was the reason they won a national championship.
Okay.
I thought Quinn Ewers was going to be better in Texas. I thought but I also felt that having Arch Manning there was going to be tough. That's what me and you had that argument back and forth about. I feel like, listen, it was a long time ago. I was kind of an old man, take a lot of pills. You know what I mean? So this is evident that, you know, I take a lot of medication. I got to take it here in a few
That's why
months
I'm
before I go to
here.
school.
Somebody got to keep you in check.
Yeah. That's why you have checks and balances, man. We could use that in politics, but we'll say that to the side. Yeah. So yeah, I'd take Quinn Ewers. I just think he was a more polished quarterback. Carson Beck just seemed like he just kind of threw the ball into space and kind of
I will.
hoped
I
it was
will
a
say.
Georgia
I
player
will say.
there.
He didn't have the talent at receiver that Quinn Ewers had, though.
I'm pretty sure the Georgia talent and the Texas talent was on par. The
Georgia's receivers
performance
led the
is
nation in drops last year.
okay. Well, that's a problem. That's the problem.
No, I think that I would take Quinn Ewers as well. The only question I have about him, because I think he works hard, but I think that he's just injury prone is the big thing for me. But then again, Carson Beck just got hurt too, so who knows? But
I
I'm
think a
interested.
team that's currently in the league, if they were to draft him, I can't imagine him getting before the third round. I can't imagine like a team because like I said, we look at the draft order.
Mhm.
It's like it's not a lot of teams with aging quarterbacks, and it's not a lot of teams that need to replace. Short of maybe Arizona,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe Arizona takes a flyer on him in the third round
Well,
if
they
he's
did
still
just get
there.
Jacoby Brissett too.
But that's what I'm saying. So Jacoby Brissett's not going to be your starter, and if
Mhm.
Kyler Murray doesn't, perform, you have Quinn Ewers, your third back, your third quarterback, and maybe you bring him along next year. But I mean, maybe Las Vegas in the third or fourth round because you can groom him with Tom Brady's tutelage as much as he can be available with his day job. But I don't see a lot of teams that would take him because a lot of teams have young quarterbacks. Maybe the
Yeah.
Giants in the
Well,
third or
we were
fourth
talking
round.
about the other day when we were talking about next year being the quarterback draft maybe because next year you got Arch, Nico, Drew Aller, Lenore Sellers is eligible next year, Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik, Sam Levitt, John Mateer, Miller Moss, Carson Beck,
And
so
then there's
like
gonna be at least one or two guys that step up and show you. I think getting a lot of like was it Tyler Shutt or from
from Louisville.
Louisville?
Yeah.
So he's getting so a lot of
Yeah.
these transfer guys are like 24 years old and they're gonna get their shot. They're like, you know what? He's seasoned. He's in his adult body. Maybe we can work with that. Excuse me.
Yeah. So yeah, like I'm looking forward to that too. But this draft is deep everywhere. Corner, running back, wide receiver, maybe not quarterback so much. But there's not a big. I don't think there's a lot of offensive linemen in this draft. But there's a lot of defensive line talent, linebacker. So I think this is going to be a fun draft. I'm here for it, and more importantly, I am here for you. So is Mr. Logical. If nothing else, if you don't remember nothing else that we said tonight, you got to remember that we said, we love you. Enjoy your weekend. On Tuesday, we will be back with NBA awards, picking our Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, so on and so forth. Enjoy your weekend. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the freaking things, do all the good things. Have a liquid death. Argue and debate this weekend, but do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
We out.